Hello and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Kathy O'Sullivan, Editorial Director for CIO in Australia and New Zealand. And today my guest is Dr. Rachna Gandhi, who is the Global Chief Digital and Data Officer at Ramsay Health Care. Hello, Rachna. Welcome to the show.
Kathy, lovely to see you again and a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you.
Great to chat with you again. And look, you and I have spoken before, and I love hearing about CIO's professional journey. So can you share a bit more about your career and some of the milestones that have led up to your current role at Ramsay Health Care?
Certainly. So I think to start with, I haven't actually had a career in tech. So I did come to kind of a digital career in a maybe somewhat unusual way. My early career was very much in strategy, and particularly in customer strategy is the area I was very passionate about. My PhD is linked to the topic. And my focus in those earlier jobs was very much about how you build customer-centric and focused cultures, how we leverage data around it. I had a lot of exposure in working as a data scientist. Transition really to, I guess, more into technology or digital happened through my passion for leading change, and probably found its roots in my time at Service New South Wales. I had the pleasure of being part of the startup team there, and a lot of that transformation was around how we digitally enable a better service experience for the citizens of New South Wales. And that's where I think what connected with me most is what I love about change and transformation is how you set an organization up for the future. It's very much about creating future fit businesses, and technology and data and AI and digital more holistically play a very critical role in that. So since Service New South Wales, yes, I've gravitated more towards digital and data roles. Having said that, I've spent time in my career working in large operations roles, leading large operations teams. But again, there the focus has been on how do we actually enable a better experience through better use of technology and data. So it's been an absolute privilege to be in the role that I am at Ramsay. It's an industry that I've come late into, but feel very passionately about. And the profound impact digital AI and data can actually have on healthcare is kind of what gets me excited every morning to show up to work. So kind of unusual pathway, but really enjoying what I'm doing right now.
So let's get into the role then. Give us an overview of what that encompasses at Ramsay Health Care and the organization itself. Tell us about its purpose and what you and your team look after.
Sure. So the Ramsay purpose is something that really resonates with me. It's people caring for people. I think it's very apt in terms of the industry it's in, but also it's lived. It's a lived purpose. It's something you experience in the organization. My team, so essentially when I came into Ramsay, my role prior to that didn't exist. So we had an IT team, particularly in Australia. And the global focus was not mature either. Every region in Ramsay was running its digital agenda. So I wear two hats. I am leading more directly the digital transformation in Ramsay Australia, but I also, guide the digital ambition in the other regions. We do have a structure where there is reasonable amount of autonomy in other regions, but there is a global focus to make sure that as one of the few international companies, we're actually leveraging synergies that come from all of us pursuing a digital agenda. And of course, we operate in the Nordics, in Europe, in UK, and Australia. Within Australia, as I said, my role didn't exist. The focus in the last 3 years has very much been about developing a team, taking a strategy to the board, a bold one, and being on this journey to digitally enable the organization. We've had dual focus, really, if the way I would describe the strategy is there's a lot of emphasis on closing tech debt because healthcare as an industry is actually quite low maturity when it comes to digital and data. and equally having a focus on making sure we're driving innovation, improving the experience for our people and for our patients and customers. So we have had a bit of a bifocal view of, what do we need to do in the near term to improve the experiences, but how do we also architect to create a digital business for the future? And that's an area I'm extremely passionate about, as I called out before. Yes, digital is an enabler for the business, but equally, digital setting up the organization for the future fitness component in my mind is really driven by the digital infrastructure you put in place. And it can be a distinct competitive advantage having that platform, a scalable digital platform underpinning your business. So they've been the sort of two lenses we've been bringing to the work.
So talk to us some more about that digitalization journey. What have been some of the key achievements of your team in recent years?
Sure. So we, and I'll maybe talk about it in both those fronts, is we've certainly taken a very considered approach in how we want to architect the future platform. And that's because one of my realizations coming into healthcare was it is a very low digital maturity setting, the industry. So you have an advantage, particularly when you've come from a different industry, to go, we don't really only want to play catch up. It's not about, going on the journey everyone else has been through. You have a late mover advantage, in fact. And the benefits actually comes from leapfrogging and learning from what other industries have learned. So if I break it down into three things in terms of achievements, I think one would certainly be that we've bought that start with the end in mind lens, and we are architecting for the future. It's not just about throwing a few digital solutions in. We're actually building the infrastructure required for the future. To that extent, some big wins have been we have created a single source of truth for our data with common definitions, data model, a really good data governance around it to improve the quality and keep it secure. And this single repository, we call it the Data Hub, is democratized. So it is creating self-service analytical capability. And we have radically uplifted the insights we can produce for the business to create real bottom line impact. We've also created a whole new experience for our patients to go through the administration process, which is completely digital on your app. And that's been a big win. We've seen, close to 8.1 out of 10 satisfaction scores, very high adoption rate by our patients. We've also moved to digitize or at least make electronic a lot of our digital our medical records to ensure that while we are moving towards more digital workflows, we're at least taking the impact of paper away as soon as we can and having them on scanned or digital versions. There's a whole bunch of work we're doing on AI, which I'll maybe go through in a bit, and some good proof of concepts there. And we have done some of the basics as well. We've rolled out an HRIS system. Ramsay didn't have an HR system. We're very close to rolling out some really impactful solutions in procurement. In healthcare, outside of your people cost, procurement is your largest cost. So getting some good data and systems in that is a huge benefit to the organization. And we have actually been doing, we've had a lot of focus in a good way on process optimization. So creating, and I don't mean by that just the tactical fixes, but creating the maturity in the organization to understand its process catalog, what are the metrics it's trying, how does process optimization work, and taking out friction from those processes. So it's fair to say it's been a very holistic program of work, going from data to process to technology, AI, etc., and doing that in a way that is architecturally future fit.
And you mentioned earlier, the patient being the focus of your team. And of course, your team won Team of the Year Customer Value at last year's CIO 50 Awards. So can you share a bit more with the audience about that focus on the patient and how your team has been driving those initiatives?
Yes. I think this is one, it's been a cornerstone in pretty much any role I've had in my career, maybe because I started my career in customer strategy, is, how do you ensure that people, but particularly patients, are at the heart of what you design, where you start from, etc. So one of the key things we did at Ramsay, it was probably a month after I'd started, I brought in a team to partner with me to build out some of our core patient journeys for our core therapeutic areas, so we cancer, mental health, areas that we prioritize in terms of the service that we want to provide our patients. And we mapped out the entire journey from a patient perspective, but also from a doctor perspective, our administrative team perspective, and the kind of the systems and the data that sat beneath it. I have found that's usually a really good place to start, is understand the experience your patients are having today and what's the vision for where you want to go with that experience in the future. That way, it means that even when you're thinking about the architecture, when you're thinking about solutions, you keep coming back to what is the holistic experience you're trying to create for the patient, as opposed to, I want to put a widget in here and I want to take cost out of there and you can achieve all of that, but you're kind of coming at it from, this is Kathy, she's, undergoing this treatment. This is what her experience looks like today. And this is what we want it to look like tomorrow. And that becomes your North Star. So that was an important thing for us to bring in. The other aspect of it is making sure, which I'm sure you hear all the time, is that the patient experience, the consumer experience, is embedded in any product design in a really tangible way throughout the entire product's life. Not just when you're designing it, but when you're maintaining it, when you're taking it to market, when you're upgrading it, whatever it is that, you have the consumer of that experience embedded in the design and what you do with it. So we have made sure that, I had the advantage of setting this team up from scratch. So we've ensured that we've embedded those things in our ways of working. Don't get me wrong, there's always areas for improvement, particularly in this space, because often you get caught up in deadlines. So if, this has got to go live on this date, and you kind of have to remind yourself to step back and say, have the people who are really going to consume this, have they really been involved? Have they given it the tick? Have we tested it with them? So it's been a cornerstone of how we are trying to work, Desiree.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. I love that focus on the patient and their journey. And I think there were some things that their family members could also see when they were going through certain treatments, when they were finished an operation and whatnot.
Correct. Yes, so that's, sorry, I should mention that because that was part of the win for the team, as we did introduce the patient tracker. And it's a good one to talk to, because the team actually built a proof of concept within, 60K and within a few weeks. We took it out really rapidly to test it. We found that really resonated, but particularly the care ones more than the patient, because it sends a text. If you opt in, it sends a text to your loved one or your carer of where you are in that journey of whatever treatment you're in there to receive. Reduces a lot of calls to our nurses who get called up by loved ones to say, is this person out of surgery? How did it go, etc. So it was a very patient-centric and carer-centric solution that we could actually scale quite quickly.
And of course, we can't go a day without talking about AI. You did mention that Ramsay is playing in this area. So what are you currently using or exploring with this technology, and what are the benefits that you are hoping it will bring?
Yeah, I'll talk to the approach, because there are, at least my reflection, Kathy, in the space is, there's a lot of conversation about hype. There's a lot of conversation of, scaling and creating value. Certainly, my perspective on this has been that you got to get in early. You absolutely, because this is not just about the solutions you roll out. It's actually about creating AI literacy in the business. So that means the sooner you securely get AI in the hands of operations, HR, finance, and the tech team, not just the tech team, the sooner you're educating them and bringing them on the journey on a technology that's going to be very, very relevant, is already very relevant, but will be even more relevant in the future. And you're starting to build the confidence and literacy levels of how to deal with, how to interact with this technology in a secure way. The great thing about generative AI is that it is very user-centric. It's really easy to use. So it's not hard to get people to adopt it, unlike other technologies. The second thing I firmly believe in is the team starting to test and learn very quickly, because we are likely to have more failures or learnings, if I can put it that way. And that's the only way to scale, is to fail fast, to fail forward. So we have 2 or 3 prototypes that we are actively pursuing, 2 that we are scaling, and there are challenges to scaling this. And interestingly, like a lot of other technology, the challenge is not in adoption. I found AI adoption is just so much easier, generative AI adoption. It's actually in being able to securely scale it and to manage the hallucination, manage the inconsistencies of the output, etc. And then remembering the third thing, which is sometimes important because people tend to forget with generative AI, is you still need good data. You still need good foundations. People seem to think that it just works, but for it to actually deliver tangible value, there is an iceberg effect. There are a whole bunch of things underneath, like good foundations, good data, good security that you do have to have in place. So it's not a plug and play that people might think sometimes, at least not in a scalable way, probably in an individual way, yes. So they have been cornerstones. We are, as I said, doing a few proof of concepts and a couple that we've scaled already. And they have been in the administrative engagement space rather than the clinical, because you want to get more things right before you go, applying AI in the clinical space. It's something I'm extremely excited about. I also think its impact in healthcare will be quite profound in the long term. But the runway required to prepare for it, you need to have that in place. So it's not something that you wake up 2 years from now and go, okay, now I'm serious about AI, and you turn key. You actually have to put the work in from now, which is what very much the team is trying to do.
And so how do you and the team then balance that, looking for the innovative, the next big thing, that use of emerging technology, but also balancing it with, there is still that need for maintaining existing IT stack and legacy infrastructure. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, that's the constant question, isn't it? And then that's true in any industry, really. It's not so much. I think the challenge we've had in healthcare is because so many foundations are lacking because of underinvestment in the past. It's not just about maintaining, you're actually still building some foundational things. So it's a balance between constantly innovating, absolutely, but also playing catch up on building your foundation so you can innovate more sustainably. So how do we approach that? I think one is being really clear on you're never going to close your entire tech debt. What are the most critical pieces that are needed for you to innovate and to create value, and kind of prioritizing that. And with innovation, maybe taking, 2 views of one is who can you partner with to help you accelerate innovation? Not everything doesn't need to be built internally, rediscovered internally. And you have to find the right partners, though. But sometimes finding the right partners can absolutely help you get out of the door quicker. And then what are the pieces of innovation you want to drive, because that IP is just so critical to your way of doing business or critical to your digital ethos and strategy. So we've been a bit deliberate on that. What do we want to do internally and what's important for us to do there? And we debate that constantly. Things could change. And where will partners, be the right approach to accelerate, to help us accelerate?
So what do you look for then when it comes to technology partners? I mean, what does good look like from a partnership point of view? And who do you involve in the decision making when you're going out to market?
Yes. So let me start with the second part of the question. There has to be operational or business ownership. It's not just about the digital team or the technology team looking for a partner, unless it's something as intrinsic as your cloud partner, for example. But when we're looking at AI, we're looking at patient-facing or employee-facing solutions. You absolutely need business ownership for it to work. So usually it is joint. It will be the digital team, procurement, and the business owner looking to find, identify, and progress partners together. What do we look for? I think it comes down to the word we just used is partner, and it is harder than one thinks, because inevitably what you find are vendors, right, who want to sell you things. If they're good vendors, they'll deliver what they've actually said on the box and do it in a timely, etc. way. But that's not really what partnership is about. The partnership really is that you have vested interest in a common outcome. There is investment at both ends to get to that, in various forms, to get to that outcome. And it benefits both equally, that there is benefit created for both. And that means it's not a window, essentially. It's someone you want to do long-term business with vested interest and a win-win outcome there. And in my experience, it's harder than one expects it to be right now. And it's really important that you carefully pick those partners. And it's getting a little bit harder in technology also, because technology is changing so rapidly. So you do want to have enough choice in your partnerships. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, because there's so much advancements happening that you want to keep those options to some degree open.
And with technology changing so fast, then what are you thinking about when it comes to the future of the IT workforce? What kind of roles do you think will be in demand in the future? And maybe what are ones that won't possibly exist in the future?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I think there's a whole bunch of roles, we had, as much as 2 years ago that are not critical anymore, that are can equally be substituted. I tend to look at it a little bit differently in I guess, where does having human capability do something, create a truly, especially in health, humanistic and relatable experience for our patients or our customers. So yes, you can go say, we'll be writing code, we already are writing code with AI, etc. So those things are quite, well documented. But I think the skills that will be really important are ones that can bring technology, that deep human understanding and understanding of where a business, not just technology, but what the future of a business is or a sector is or an industry is, to creatively solve for the challenges we have today. So even today, when I recruit in the technology team, or at least the ambition is that you're bringing business savvy leaders and consumer-centric leaders who have a deep subject matter expertise in how to use technology to solve problems. You're not really only looking for, okay, this person is just a crazy astute solution designer, and understands just architecture. You actually want that horizontal thinking. And I think it'll head there more. It'll head far more, because some of the really specialist things will be more easily done through AI. So you want that more horizontal thinker, and particularly one that brings the ability to design for the future, not just for what's needed in the business today.
And there seems to be a pushback against diversity in other parts of the world, shall we say, at the moment. But what do you think we can do to attract people from different backgrounds, to have those different ways of thinking in our organizations? Are there any practical things that can be done?
Yeah, I think in a simplest way, the most practical thing to do is to just do it. Right. I think there's just it's actually, if you're intent on having a diverse team, which is good business, good thought leadership, because it brings more diversity in how you solve for things. It's more reflective of the patient base you serve. It's more reflective of your entire workforce. You got to just, it's not going to be a plan. It's got to be action. You just have to do it. You have to make sure that the people you're bringing into your recruitment shortlist, the people you reach out to, the people you put in front to be role models of the kind of people you're recruiting for, you have diversity embedded in all forms in it. So for me, typically through my life, Kathy, for this in particular, the mantra has always been just be the change. Just don't expect everyone else to do it before you will follow. If you intrinsically believe, and for me, it's been a personal value, you just have to be the change. Secondly, I think what really helps from a practical perspective with this is we have in healthcare or any industry, you have a good feel for your customer base. You do know the kind of people you serve. You should keep that in mind when you're building a team that is going to design solutions for that customer. Intrinsically, you just bring a bigger customer-centric lens when you have a more representative workforce solving for that particular audience, whoever that might be. So, and the final thing I always ask myself, and this is someone else's quote that I loved, is, constantly saying to yourself, if you really want to be the change, what are you not going to let happen under your watch, right? It's not about what's happening elsewhere. It's not about what somebody else said about whether DEI is important or not. It's about what your values are and what will you not let happen in your watch. And I certainly feel passionately that at least in my watch, we are inclusive and respectful as a workplace.
And reflecting on your own journey then, what advice would you give someone who was aspiring to be a chief digital officer, CIO? Maybe they don't have that hard tech background, but they really do. They're really passionate about the impact that they can have. What advice would you give them?
I think that there is don't assume that there is only one path that leads there, right? And it's not just me. There's a whole bunch of people I've come across in the space who come at it from very different backgrounds and perspectives. So one, certainly don't think that there's a set path and you're not on it, so that's not somewhere you can get to. And two, in any role, this is not just a CDO role or a CIO role. I think passion to have impact, passion to make a contribution, the perspective of, what purpose does the organization, what purpose do I need to play in this organization? What role how do I need to show up for this? Is usually a better place to start than how do I get to a CIO role? Because you need both. You need to understand your trajectory and where you're trying to get to. But on a day-to-day basis, the focus has to be on how are you having impact? How are you making a difference? How are you showing up for the organization and for your teams and for the person that you report to? And those characteristics actually really help you in your career journey. From a pure CDO perspective, having a good passion for what technology can enable is important. I don't think having an engineering degree is the end of it, but having a good passion, which means you read up on it, you follow it, you understand how technology can change businesses' lives, etc. I think that is needed. You got to feel passionate about what technology can achieve or data can achieve. Yeah.
And finally, Rachna, what's important to you and the team in the months ahead? Are there any other exciting initiatives in the pipeline?
Yes, actually, for what it's worth, we have a massive Q4, as in our financial year Q4. We've got some very large deliverables coming up. So what's important to me, which actually I just spoke to the team about earlier this week, is accelerating outcomes for the business. So delivering on our promises, because we do have a very big Q4. But I think looking at it a little bit, stepping back and taking a more holistic view is how do we actually accelerate? We've had, a couple of years of laying some important foundations, delivering value. How do we start to accelerate the impact that we can make, for the benefit of our patients and our people?
Dr. Rachna Gandhi, Global Chief Digital and Data Officer at Ramsay Health Care. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure. Kathy, thank you.